Welcome back, students. I hope you've all had a good break. I want to firstly congratulate you on how far you've come in your academic journey. It sometimes may feel as if it's going on forever, but you've made it very far. And I hope that this video is a nice introduction and just a kind of ease into the new cluster. This video, some of you may have seen something similar before. It's really just me reminding you about some expectations before we start this module, and also just to remind you about the overall TOGI expectations. So we start with the module guide. Every module will have a guide, and the guide will be found on Moodle as close to the top as possible. Please read this module guide very carefully. It helps you to plan your time. It tells you when assessments are due. It tells you the weighting of every assessment. Remember, the weighting is very important as it will give you an indication of the amount of the coursework mark that assessment takes up or is weighed at. Remember, you also need to know what your purpose and objective is for doing the module, and of course it's going to help you generally to just manage the process, manage your journey, and allow you to plan effectively. I sometimes print out things like module guides so I can highlight, and in order to save paper, it's better maybe if you save it on your desktop, but obviously it depends on what you prefer. And referencing. So some of us really don't like to talk about referencing. We don't like to think about referencing, and even the word gives us chills. But we need to remember that referencing is an important part of your academic journey. References have to be at the end of the reference list, has to be at the end of your assignment, the last page, on a new page. All your references have to be in alphabetical order. You must follow the format exactly. And you need to ensure that every source of information that you've read, that you've cited in your text, is in your reference list. So you cannot have any sources of reference in your reference list that you've not cited in your text. So in-text referencing the citation at the beginning or the end of the sentence have to have been done for you in order for you to put that reference in your reference list. It can't just be something that you've looked at. Images, journal articles, books, textbooks, videos, blogs, all of those have to be referenced. And I'm just going to quickly once again go onto the Moodle platform. I'm going to show you where again to find that reference list, because it's always being updated, and just to give you a quick look at how we need to reference. Okay, so on the Moodle platform, mine might look a bit different to yours, but this is on the Moodle platform. On the right-hand side here, where it says Documents, you'll find your TOGA Harvard Referencing Guide. You'll find your welcome letters, the 2020 year program, so you can look at the calendar, the prospectus, etc., etc. And academic rules and regulations are very important, and as well as the orientation booklet. Some of you struggle to understand how the weighting works. If you read those documents, it will really help you to understand how we mark and what the weighting of assignments mean. Universities use weighting to help you to understand how your coursework mark is made up. It doesn't mean because one assignment is worth 50 and the other one is worth 50 that they are going to be made up, or they're going to make up a specific part of your coursework. Rather, the weighting helps you to understand what percentage of that coursework mark does this assignment really hold. So please read those regulations, because I know students do question that quite a bit. So I'm going to open up the TOGI Harvard Referencing Guide very quickly. Hopefully it won't take too long. Okay, so here we go. I'm hoping that many of you or most of you will know this guide quite well. I personally have referenced or referred to this quite a bit. Please read this. It's really helpful. Okay, so the referencing, starts with a quick guide. So look at the quick guide. It helps you to understand how to reference books, ebooks, and hard copies. It talks about the citation inside of the sentence, as it's done here, at the end of the sentence, and then your reference for your reference list or your bibliography. So that one is over here. It talks about referencing from a book that has 2 authors, from 3 authors. And just remember that if there's 3 or more authors, that you can use it instead of writing out everybody's surname all the time. So the first time you mention the author or the book, you reference the specific book or the resource, you put in the whole reference, and every time thereafter you can just use it all, as opposed to having to retype everything out. That is the year and that is the page When notes and resources are compiled by TOGI lecturers, like for me, if you reference my videos or you reference any of the information I use, this is the way that you will, this is how you will reference it. Okay. So the videos obviously are different, but this is the way that we reference the information. Us, she's used as the example. You'd use that as the reference or the referencing guide. Referencing from a journal, from websites, this is important. Please follow this website. You will need to follow this as different to the way you reference a book or a journal. So just become familiar with the way in which that needs to be done. YouTube as well. You can reference from YouTube, from research papers, from thesis and newspaper articles. If you referencing from any government documents, like the CAPS document, for example, if there's an interview, then if there's a video, this is the way that you would reference the video. And this is quite important. I find a lot of students are putting images into the assignments, but not referencing the images. Please follow this referencing guide. This is how you will reference any image you have. Remember, if you're not referencing, lecturers are obliged to not mark your work, and they actually need to return it to you and say, please complete your referencing and I'll give you an extension and then I will mark your work. A lot of your work will also be put through a program that will allow us to have a look at whether you have plagiarized or not. So this program basically has a look at your assignment, and then it can indicate to lecturers if you've plagiarized or not. So be very careful. Sometimes you do make a mistake. You've read something, you put it down and you don't realize that you haven't referenced. So just make sure to double check your work as you go along, and everything that you read, you reference it as soon as possible. Okay, just to clarify what I said earlier, lecturers are not obliged to give you another chance to complete, to get a mark for your assignment. So make sure that you get it right the first time. Lecturers may decide to ask you to fix references, but please just try and have them correct structure so that you can avoid all of that. Just a quick note on essay structure. I found this interesting topic on how to write an essay and how to reference, and they spoke about the essay having a specific structure and a specific percentage breakdown. And they said that an introduction should be 10% of your essay, your body should be 75%, and your conclusion 15%. The introduction will really give the readers insight into what you're going to be talking about, or what the topic of the essay is and how you're going to be making your points. It also says that, and usually this is how you write an essay, you try to explain 1 point per short paragraph. Try not to make excessive amount of points and you kind of lose the reader because they don't know exactly what you're explaining. And importantly, don't make new points in your conclusion. Your conclusion is really just pulling everything together. And conclusions and introduction can also have a reference, or you can cite a reference in your conclusion and your references, 1 or 2 or 3, whatever the case is, but you can include them there as well, and of course in your body too. Please read your rubrics before you start an assignment. Your rubric is going to give you an indication of how to get the most marks for that assignment as possible. I often find that students are not following the rubric and therefore miss out on important parts of the assignment. Not only is the instructions to the assignment important, but the rubric also gives you an indication of areas where you're going to score the most marks. Some rubrics will be very descriptive and others need you to think a little bit and really pinpoint exactly what is required from you. The rubrics are a way for you to just keep track, to make sure that you know what you're doing, you know that you're meeting the standard, and you know how to achieve the best type of mark that you possibly can. Also, considering you're going to be teachers and having to create rubrics yourself, try to pay attention to the rubrics. Look at the way that lecturers are structuring it. See the type of rubrics that work well for you, because when you're going to be doing it for students one day, it will help that you have a bit of an example of what a good rubric looks like. Okay, remember, only PDF submissions will be marked. Moodle allows us to mark on your PDF submission. If it's not PDF, it's very difficult for us to mark, and most lecturers are going to return your work and say you need to submit as a PDF for us to actually mark it. I'm going to show you very quickly again how to save as a PDF. Just for you as a reminder, and for those of you who know, you can just move past this part. Okay, so if this is your document, it can be Word or PowerPoint, whatever you're using. What you'll do is you'll go to File, you'll go to Save As, okay, then you'll choose where you're going to save it, so you'll save it on your PC or whatever the case is. And then you'll go down to PDF. You'll obviously put the document name there, so we'll call it PDF, and then you'll click Save. And so your PDF will be what you're going to submit. You're not going to submit your Word document, you're not going to be submitting your PowerPoint, but you'll be submitting the PDF. Okay, so just a quick word on time management. You have many courses, so you need to plan very carefully. You need to plan towards your assessments. Try not to work to the last minute. I know some people use the adrenaline of the pressure to get through things, but try to plan, use a calendar, I would say, and I always use this, keep in contact with facilitators. It helps you to keep on track. It helps you to remember how to do things, and it also will help you just to ascertain how you are progressing, what you need to do, what you still need to do. Because of the cluster level that you are on, we'll still work at the bottom of Bloom's, which is around remembering and recalling and explaining, but we're also going to be moving up to create, evaluate, and analyze. You're going to be doing a lot more of this in the higher clusters because we will moving to the higher part of Bloom's taxonomy. There is going to be a distribution, of course, and not necessarily only going to be about creating or evaluating, but definitely the move is to try to get you to that more higher cognitive level, higher production level, an expectation around you really showing what you're learning rather than just presenting or explaining the facts that have been presented to you. Those of you who have done courses with me before know that I always ask for reflections. I believe reflections help us to develop an educated gut. An educated gut helps us to respond quicker, easier, and with more success to different situations. So I will ask you to reflect on your learning, reflect on your process, reflect on your experience. And this is how I'm going to ascertain where you are in your journey, in your academic journey, and what you still need to work on. Beyond that, reflections also help you to see where you are, be honest about your journey, where you are in your academic progression. It helps you to step back, take a breather, consider your areas of strength and your areas of challenge. And you just need to be open and honest to really look at your progress with non-judgment and in preparation to change things that need to be changed. Some quick tips: try not to use contractions in academic work. Contractions are, instead of saying I cannot, you say I can't, or I will not, you say I won't. Preferably in academic work, just type out the full word. That would be better than using contractions. Do not introduce new information into your conclusion, as I said earlier. Consult as many sources as possible. I use the number 7 here, but that is not necessarily the number. Try to use as many different types of sources as possible. Look at what different authors are saying. Look at the debates. This helps you to present more rich research and more rich assignments. Remember, now your mark allocation would be lower, but your expectation is higher. So even though for example, in cluster 1 or 2, 5 marks, it was okay for you to present 2 or 3 lines, at this cluster level, you'll have to do a lot more than just 2 or 3 lines, even though the mark allocation is 5, for example. Don't make too many points in one sentence. As I said earlier, read your rubrics, and remember, knowing Bloom's, reading it, understanding it, will really help you to know what the expectation is. There are nice Bloom's little figures and images that explains to you what create really means when you're doing your assignments. Okay, so that's all from me for now. Good luck with this cluster, with this semester. I wish you the very, very best. I hope that you enjoy all the modules that you need to complete. And before you know it, it's going to be the end of the year and you would have been successfully through this cluster too. Good luck, guys, with all the work.